Hey, we're live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again this week. I'm really excited about today and just about this series that we're doing. For those of you who are new, my name is Andrea Olson, and I created an organization called Overflow Worship in 2014. That's a ministry to worship leaders and worship teams. And joining me is Ben Stowe, and I'm not going to introduce him because he can tell you. Ben, introduce yourself to everyone.
Well, I'm a geek. Uh, my name is Ben Stowe, as Andrea said. I work primarily with the technology side of the business, assisting people with learning sound, lighting, video technologies. But of course, the fundamental part of that is people. So today we've got a great topic, and it was suggested by one of our viewers. So thanks for that. That's sort of uh, a subtle nudge for you to be involved and participate with comments and offer suggestions on future topics. But that's the name of the game today, is to talk about volunteers that will be interacting with that technology.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Ben said, guys, we want to do this for you. This is the purpose of, whether you're watching on the Facebook group or you're, on YouTube or watching things afterwards. We want this to be relevant for you and helpful. And so the more feedback you can give us, the more, interaction with the comments and questions that are posted in the Facebook group, the better, because then we can curate the content to exactly what you need. So,
Yeah, absolutely. As much as I deeply admire and respect Andrea, and I enjoy every conversation we have, I think both her and I want this to be useful to you as well. And a shout out to Mike. Thanks for making a comment. If you notice, Mike's comment popped up on the screen. That's we can make you famous. So send a comment, and we'll put you up on the screen.
yay.
Yay!
Oh, cool. Yeah. Hey, Mike. Glad you're here. So, we are talking about volunteer recruitment, like Ben said. So, specifically within the context of church world, but also I think there's some really helpful tips for anybody because I feel like in many organizations there is a spot for volunteers or just team building in general, and I think that's a really big part of it is the team building. And so hey, Mike, and so I want to just kick it off with talking about the importance and value of relationship. And Ben and I will together come at it from different angles and different perspectives. But as we go, like we said, if you have questions to join into the conversation, please do, because we would love to continue to curate this. So Ben, what have you seen in your experience with, maybe specifically in sound in the church, or maybe there's other avenues that you can help me with that you've worked with groups of volunteers? Are there any basic things that you've seen have worked really well, or what's kind of how can you kick us off in this conversation with volunteer recruitment?
Well, there are a couple things that I've seen work really well, and I like to use a football analogy. One is that you put people in the position to succeed. For example, if you take Jerry Rice, who is undoubtedly one of the most prolific wide receivers, arguably the best wide receiver in the game, if you ask Jerry Rice to play guard, or play on the line, he would really struggle. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
likewise, if you ask somebody, ask an offensive tackle to play wide receiver, he's only going to get 30 yards down the field before he just falls over. He's
Right.
he's not going to run that route. So I think recognizing people's talents and then helping them be in positions to succeed. Uh, I think, and I said this on your podcast, which, by the way, if you're not listening to the Overflow Worship podcast, you're really missing out. You should. Andrea has a great podcast. Uh,
Oh, thank you.
but the only requirement to being a church sound tech is to wear a Star Wars T-shirt, and I think
Yes.
that's sort of sometimes true. We bring people into these roles who are maybe wholly unqualified, and that's all right. I
Mm-hmm.
think the willingness is the biggest qualification. Everything else, comes next. And Andrea and I have spent a lifetime teaching people those skills.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Absolutely. I think it's that teachability, or that, coming with humility of just, this is the gift that I have to offer. And, it might not be much. I think about so many songs that roll through my head when I say that, coming from a spiritual perspective, our worship that we bring to the Lord. It's like, here's this gift. I don't feel like it's much, but it's everything that I have. And that kind of humility that we bring to, our like volunteer perspectives and our attitudes is so key, because honestly, that you can't really get very far without that. Without that humility to serve, and it's a hard thing to teach. And so, I just encourage, anybody out there who is wanting to volunteer and wanting to serve your church in some capacity, even outside of worship. It's it's so key to come with that humble perspective and just that willingness to say, here I am. I might not be really awesome at what I do or what I have to offer, but, I'm willing to share it. And that's the first step. The rest, is teachable and logistics, So yeah, I love that. I love that perspective, Ben. That's so key.
Yeah, I think giving is a gift, and first and foremost, we'll get into the how and how to recruit and how to retain volunteers. But I think first and foremost to recognize that giving is a gift, and we want to allow people that gift. We want to not
Yeah.
deny them the opportunity to give.
Yeah.
I think basically everybody wants to be useful. I think,
Mm-hmm.
and again, we just have to find the right roles for people and plug them in. And two, Jesus talked about this, the parable of the talents, and basically to summarize that, we're supposed to give, and in fact, you and I have been tremendously blessed with our gifts. And I just realized as I was saying this for the first time that here we are, this is maybe how we're one of the ways that we're serving,
Mm-hmm.
with our gifts. So it's a worthwhile parable, I think, to look up. Jesus had a lot of parables. I love storytellers, and obviously he was great.
Yeah.
For me, I think some of the fundamentally really important things when it comes to recruiting volunteers is to number one, to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
What are you asking for exactly?
Yep.
And some of the examples there might be: are we asking for someone to come wash dishes after a community meal? And I've washed my share of dishes. I don't know why they always think, oh, Ben's a tech guy, he can work the dishwasher. It's not that complicated. Anyway, I just think nobody else wants to do it.
Yeah.
Uh, but anyway, I was a professional dishwasher, by the way. At 15, that was my one of my first jobs. I was a professional dishwasher. But
Yeah. See, you learned something in that. That's
that's
awesome.
right. He paid like 85 cents an hour. So it's practically volunteer. Anyway, so,
True.
number one, are we asking for, 1 hour of your time to wash dishes after a meal? Are we asking for you to participate in an event that
Mm-hmm.
will have some, weeks involved? Are we asking you to be on a board where there's a regular commitment for years, possibly? But,
Yeah.
communicate the what and the how long so that the volunteer knows what they're getting into and has the opportunity to kind of sort of marinate on that and say, okay, yeah, I can give up an hour, or yes, I can do every Tuesday for the rest of my life. uh, you know I think
Yeah.
that's one. And I think two, and I really want to hear your perspective, because again, you've done such an amazing job working with churches and training them. I think number two, with the specificity, is also flexibility.
Yeah.
That recognize, if this, like the football analogy, recognize if you've got a Jerry Rice, and try to find a way to put them running routes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what you're originally approaching them about isn't the best fit for them, you know,
Right.
but that doesn't mean they're not a good fit for your ministry. Find a place that they can be involved. I don't know any ministry yet. I've not encountered any ministry that has too many volunteers.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that could occur, and we can talk about that in a minute. I'm just kind of curious about your thoughts on the specificity and flexibility, though.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and it makes me think of something that my husband and I talk a lot about. He owns a business and works with employees and everything, and we've been talking specifically about having the right people in the right seats.
Yes.
And it's important in businesses, within employees, with you know team members, with volunteers, all of it. And so being specific, like you said, about ask, what am I asking you to do? Because it's not only, you know, from the perspective of, oh, well, you have this gift. And so I think you could fit here. But it's also, you know, stewarding that person's time well, and stewarding their just being respectful of their time and their energy and their efforts, but it's reciprocal, right? So if you're the volunteer and you're the person stepping into that role, it's also holding it loosely, because I think sometimes we can get stuck in, well, I'm the vocalist, right? Like
Right.
I'm the one who's supposed to sing on, all these songs, or sing the lead, or I'm the guitar player. And, well, what if there's a Sunday that we're not going to utilize a guitar player because it's a piano only Sunday for some special thing? And being supportive of that, I think, is huge, because I guarantee you that your worship leader probably feels a little bit bad. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you that we don't need you this Sunday. and but for you to come alongside of them and say, I can serve whenever you need me, and whenever you don't is great, and kind of giving them that permission really is a huge blessing. And so that specificity and flexibility is reciprocal. And I think it's so important for us as leaders, as, you know, whether it's professionally or in, with volunteers in churches, but then also as those who are serving, to come in with that same perspective. And it just builds this beautiful relationship between leader and volunteer it just sets you up for a healthy future, healthy relationship moving forward.
Oh, spot on. So well put. I think as you were saying that, I was thinking about, both from a business context and a volunteer context, not all that different. If the
Hmm.
volunteer has been clearly communicated the big picture,
Hmm.
they understand it's about the end result. It's not about finding a guitar part for you every
Yeah.
Sunday. It's about what is the worship experience for everybody. Because at the end of the day, it isn't about you.
Hmm.
It isn't about me. It's about something much much bigger.
Hmm.
Um, I feel very fortunate to have so many of the friends that I do, and one of them is my dear friend PJ, Pastor Jim, who is one of the best volunteer coordinators and recruiters I've ever met. I had the pleasure of serving on a ministry board where he was the pastor for many years, and we have a lifelong friendship now. And so I reached out to him knowing that we were going to do this. And some of the things that he sent me are just tremendous. And again, I watched him walk the walk. I watched him do this so well. Uh, one of the things he said was, give people some time to answer,
Hmm.
especially if it's a longer commitment. It might
Hmm.
take longer to consider it. But a way to maybe move things forward would be to try to engage them in a discussion. And right now,
Hmm.
maybe that's a Zoom meeting or something, but to say, we'd really like you to join us the next time we talk about this, and you know, sort of get kind of get a little bit familiar with the process, see how we go about things, and just say, look, I'm not asking you to commit to anything beyond just hear us out, take a look, and see if this might be a good fit for you. And by the way, as far as relinquishing volunteer roles or stepping aside, if anybody from my church is watching, I really have no problem giving up the dishwashing job. Just so you know, that's I can let that go right away.
It's all right.
I'll do something else. Um, but yeah, I think. Well, I'll let you can continue on with that thought. I'm about to start a tangent, and I got to catch myself. So
I mean, I think that's so great, and it's so key and important when working with people to make sure that they understand where they're going, right? We can't have plan out a road trip without knowing where the destination is, and we've talked about that. But I think it's important for leaders, when you're bringing in volunteers, to cast the vision, and things like, this is our ministry, like our ministry direction, and the goals and the mission statement of our ministry, so that from the get-go they know, and they know that this is what we're going for, and this is, why we do what we do. And I find it's so much easier for people to jump on board with something where they feel like they know where it's going. I mean, yes, it's worship, right? It's music. So we have that common understanding of, yep, we're going to be doing some music. We're going to be worshiping the Lord. But it's more specific than that to this ministry, so if the church's mission statement as a whole is, loving God and loving people, and their whole premise with worship is, making sure that generations worship together. Okay, so there's some really specific things that you're going to do as a worship team to come alongside of that. And then you're not shooting in the dark, right? You've kind of got this filter to run things through. And so it's important to communicate that to a potential volunteer. But then, like you said, Ben, to give people time when you communicate these things to them, to think about it, to pray about it. Anytime that I would have a conversation with somebody who wanted to be a part of the worship team that I was leading, I would say, let's get together. Let's get to know one another. I want to hear your story. I want to learn more about you. And then I would love to tell you the vision of, what God has placed on our hearts for this worship ministry. And then we would just leave it at that and say, like, you pray about it. We're going to pray about it. And then we'll talk again in, a couple of weeks and see where it's at. And then, we could take the next step from there. And I think that's huge to kind of give people that space to think on it and pray about it. But then for you as a leader, follow up is key, right? You got to keep on top of it because it's all about the relationship. And, Ben, you can chime in on this too. This is my personal experience, but can't build anything without the relationship. There's that trust that needs to be built between people and before you ever step on a platform together. And I get it, we're not in this world where we can just like go out for coffee and dinners and all, every single person on the whole worship team every month.
Right.
But little bits of intentionality, even for newcomers, for them to see you in a like natural environment and for you to intentionally reach out to them, because that is what people want. They want something to be a part of and they want to be
Absolutely.
wanted.
Hmm.
So that's, it all starts with the relationship in
You
my
know, I was
experience.
making notes as you were talking. Again, I pure gold. And as I was making these notes, I realized I was making these notes with a Star Wars pen. So I am
Yes.
qualified to be a sound guy. Just
Yes.
wanted to
I'm
point that out.
I'm not. I need like some Star Wars thing to
I'll
make
hook you
me.
up. I'll take care of you. That'll be my intentionality. I'll hook you up with
Okay.
some Star Wars gear. So a couple things as you were talking that I thought about is busy people are busy.
Mhm.
And too often, we go to the same well repeatedly, right? We know who
Right.
the effective people are, and this sort of brings us back to the parable of the talents. But your reward for giving is more giving.
Mm.
That there's more opportunities to serve. But I think part of that too is recognizing that your effective and busy people are busy and might need some time to consider that before. And in fact, you really kind of want somebody who will. You don't want somebody who's going to make a 5-year commitment in a 10-second
Oh,
decision making process.
right.
That the two don't reconcile. But at
Mhm.
the same time, I think there's tremendous opportunity to find the people who are the untapped talents.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to help people recognize the talent that they have or the gifts that they have, because maybe they don't recognize it in and of themselves. I would say, help them to, understand that by affirming their gifts,
Mhm.
and saying, listen, I think, I noticed you're wearing a Star Wars shirt. I think you make a great sound person. Okay, I'm being
Yeah.
glib here, but
Yeah.
to help instill some confidence in them and to help them recognize the gift that you see and sort of call them to the opportunity to serve. And I was actually thinking about this. I was thinking about it. Now a very good friend of mine out in New York, and I was actually hired to come out and speak to an organization that he was involved in. And he was in a leadership role for this organization, and they hired me to come out and give a technology training. And I flew out there the night before, and we did a sound check and everything. And anyway, he and I were talking, uh, and I had dinner the night before, and I said, I almost said his name. I think I won't say his name. Just
Okay.
I'll just
Yeah.
I'll just tell the story. But I said, I see you as a leader in our industry. I think that you're a guy who's going to definitely make his mark on the industry, and I see you going in that direction. And it was crazy because you could tell by the reaction that he had. He hadn't really thought of that.
Hmm.
It hadn't really occurred to him. He was doing those things. He was moving in the ways that leaders move, but he hadn't really thought about the fact that he might be the guy getting on a plane to go speak somewhere.
Hmm.
And uh, not even a year later, that's the guy he was, and he's now a very sought after speaker and presenter in our industry.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that I'll take the credit for saying that he could do that, but I think there was a
Yeah.
point where he said, "Wow, really? You think so? I didn't think I
Hmm.
could."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think affirming people's gifts, helping them recognize that they have gifts to give,
Hmm.
and then encouraging them to give those gifts. And I think a really good follow up to that is to not be upset if you're turned down,
Hmm.
because maybe it isn't the right fit. Maybe that's best for everybody. Maybe they're just busy,
Hmm.
but you've planted a seed,
Yeah.
and they can consider this and may come back to you a few months down the road and say, I notice this is an area that our ministry needs help. This isn't getting done, or this is something we could do, and I think I'm the person that could do it. You
Hmm.
know, so
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just so key to affirm people in their gifts because, like you said, it's interesting to me because I think there's this misconception that uh, people who are using their gifts publicly, so within this context, music, sound, tech, that kind of thing, that it's like people assume, oh, they must get complimented all the time or they must get encouraged all the time. And I mean, it's actually not as common anymore as maybe it used to be. I don't know. But I just personally always try to take time to affirm what is going well especially when I go into a church to consult and kind of train their team. There's a little bit of this sometimes this heaviness, like, oh, are we doing everything wrong? It's like, no, you're doing awesome, and kind of picking specific things. There's that specificity again, even here,
mhm.
specific things that's like you are really thriving in this, and you kind of start to see their countenance change. And like you said, Ben, with this friend of yours who you really encouraged, I mean, that was probably just a piece of his story and a piece of the foundation that God was building for him.
Mhm.
And we don't know the impact that our words are having on somebody, and so I think it's important to be affirming. Absolutely.
That is so true. We don't recognize the power of our words sometimes, and that doesn't mean just when we're on a podium or at a
Hmm.
lectern or in a video.
Yeah.
This was a conversation made. It was an offhanded comment at dinner. I
Yeah.
didn't really think about the ramifications. In fact, it didn't really, I didn't really think about it until a year later when I saw him getting billed as a speaker. I saw advertisements for him, and I'm like, yeah,
Cool.
Now
Cool.
me saying it didn't make it so,
Right.
but it maybe was just like you said, a piece of that puzzle. Let me ask you a deeply personal question. You and I are kind of at the top of our game. We're both recognized as leaders in our industry, but surely you never get frustrated, or you never have doubts, or you never run into roadblocks, or surely you get complimented all the time, right? Right? I mean, you never,
Never. Yeah.
never. Okay.
It's no, it's yeah, it's a great question because I think it's valuable for people to hear from others that, like, man, sometimes it's just hard. And sometimes I get inside my head and I still struggle with, just whether it's was that valuable, or did that, like, was that communicated clearly, the little things like that, or the big things like, Lord, what are you doing? Is this really what you called me to? I still have those questions that filter through my mind, and I have to work to take those thoughts captive every single day. And I think it's interesting because I have a specific person in my life who always goes out of his way. He's like he's about my dad's age, so like we just have this really sweet kind of a father like figure relationship, and I also have an awesome relationship with my dad as well. But this other guy, he always goes out of his way to encourage me, and I always tell him, like, it really means a lot to me because you're really intentional with the way you encourage and specific with the way you encourage. It's not just like, great job, which is nice, but it's really specific, and it kind of gives me fuel when I'm in those times that I'm kind of in the pit and I need to be lifted out of, to be reminded, about those specific giftings that God has given me, and that they're there for a specific purpose. Um, they're not lost, you know? So yeah, I definitely struggle with it still.
Me too. I think people would be surprised to know that. Me too.
Yeah.
So I think words matter even to us. Maybe even more so. So, Andrea, thank you so much for putting this together and for just doing what you do and being who you are. Just great to hear your perspectives from having trained so many churches. I think the moral of the story is, go invite people to give the gift of giving, and then like you said, Andrea, the rest is just details. The training can come, and in fact, hopefully this is a resource for that. Next week, I think we're going to talk a little bit about maybe tuning sound systems. Some of the questions, I believe that was submitted by my friend Gerald. So we'll keep those topic suggestions and questions coming, and we'll keep talking about them.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. This is so fun. And I just love how you're encouraging people as well and building into the church, and people all over in the industry, not just within the church, but in professional spaces as well. It's just amazing. So thank you for bringing your gift here, and thank you everybody for watching and joining us. We'll see you next Friday at noon Central, right here, for a fun conversation on tuning the room and wherever else that it goes from there. I'm
It'll be
excited
fun
to.
for me. That'll be definitely more in my wheelhouse. We'll talk nerdery. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited to learn. I'll bring my notepad.
right on. And everybody else, bring your questions and your comments and a sack lunch, and we'll do this together. Thanks again, Andrea. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.